Hi everybody, this is Peter and Sylvia. We've just had a laugh because we come up with a topic that goes around in circles, but it's one of those that I think we need to talk about sometimes. Because
And we
Sylvia
need
and
to have
I,
some fun sometimes too.
we do. Sylvia and I are practitioners. So we do stuff. We see clients and our clients get better. And we have learned various things. I think a fancy word for that is modalities. When, somebody's theory and research into something that then gets converted into a practical way of applying it. So we only know what we know because someone did something before that we have then picked up and learned from. And a lot of what is happening before it even gets to the practitioner level is called research.
Mm.
And I studied psychology, and part of psychology is to do research and do statistical analysis to figure out if what I hypothesized actually stands up to scrutiny. And these days, we get bombarded in all the media with research about this, research about that. You won't get any government to do anything unless they've done a bit of research first. You probably won't get many people in any position of authority to do anything unless they've done a bit of research. You don't even go and find a job without having researched the job market. So research is everywhere. But is it taking us anywhere?
Mm. Yeah, and the reason why we were giggling, audience, is because we were having some fun with this. Because, as Peter said, joking apart, we're practical people. We are getting things done people. We are action-based people. And yes, whilst research informs and research has its place, what do we do with all this research? What do we do with all this information? What difference does it actually make? And the reason why we were giggling is because I was talking to someone about this exactly thing the other day, and they were actually saying, they were from a university, and they were saying there's actually drawing to some conclusion that potentially we need to do some research whether the research that we do has any research benefits whatsoever. So we're going to research to see whether research does any good. And this is where we were having a bit of a giggle about that, because it's taken it even one step further. We're going to research to see whether research has any research benefits. Hey, where do we stop with this? And that's my question. Where do we stop with this research? And so many people are doing research and research and research. Things don't progress unless we have research, unless we have data. We have more data, we have more research. But what do we do with all that? Because it's actions, and we've said this before, it's actions that change things. Peter and I, we've studied, we've, got all our qualifications, but we are at the business end, as I'd like to call it. We actually speak to people. The last 4 weeks, I have encouraged 3 people not to take their own lives. That's what counts. And all this research that there's going on, fabulous as it is, as I say, what do we do with that information? It's great, but that's my sort of wonder, that we can get caught in this research and data trap almost. And it can inform us, great. But what's next?
Yeah, what is next? I don't propose that we don't do any research at all.
No, not at all. No.
But there are different types of research. There's the research that's done for purely academic reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And it stays largely within academia, and it maybe it informs future tutors in universities. Then there's the academic studies and research that somehow manage to get into mainstream media,
Mm-hmm.
where I think very often the journalists do not understand what they're looking at. They're under pressure to get something in the papers and in social media quick, and it's headline grabbing, and then it gets misrepresented. And then there's the thing about research is you can never do any piece of research. Let's just stay within the realm of psychology and human beings. You can never do any piece of research that catches everything and everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a number of people that you expose to your hypothesis, and you get the results back, and you do some nifty statistical analysis to figure out that you're taking the outliers out, and yeah, does it look as if it's statistically significant? Okay, it does, or it doesn't. But what you found out is only how does this apply to the people that were part of the study. And then that's where the trouble begins, because we now think, okay, these 200 or 5,000 people, whatever we researched, we used for research subjects, they return this sort of result. And now we think that that applies to the whole world. No, it doesn't. It applies fairly and squarely to this cohort of people. And then we can make some informed decisions to say, well, it's likely then that it will also have a wider applicable context. But if you are not careful, you can end up spreading research as being the truth, and this is how it is, when actually it's just part of a big, much, much bigger picture. Of course, we also do research in business, don't we? We have KPIs, we measure things. How many sick days do we have? What's absenteeism like? What's quality like? What's adherence process like? Of course, we do that sort of thing. But again, the question is, why do we do it? What do we do with it? And it's the what do we do with it that often falls over.
And picking up on a point that you made earlier, what's just popped up for me is, and how much importance and credence do we put on research when, as you said, it isn't the truth? For example, you might have this research piece and it comes up with research shows that people who have X, Y, and Z react like this. That's the research shows that. And it's likely, your word, Peter, it's likely that people have had this, may do that. Now, what I'm also seeing is language like research shows that people do this, therefore that person has the same thing. It's how it's not to fit the person to the research. As you said, research shows the likeliness or the potential for. It's, shows that people with may respond in this way. But let's not fit the person to the research, because each person is individual, each person is unique. And whereas that research may show the potential, the likelihood, it is not always true. And this is where I find, some of the comments that I see and some of the language that I hear, people are fitting the person to the research. They're fitting that person to the theory. And that, I think, is my word. I believe that's quite dangerous, because that person may not be anywhere near that generalization. I think that is where research, and that comes back to what I said earlier, is how much importance, how much credence do we place on that? By definition, it's research. It is not fact. And I think that's where we can get a little bit, the lines can be very blurred. And I think you have to remember it is research and sometimes theories. It's not the individual.
And if we just talk about research and take one topic, suicide, you mentioned you have had 3 clients that you worked with on their desire to take their own life. I'm pretty sure that when you worked with them, you weren't thinking about somebody's academic paper on something, and that it didn't work exactly the same way with each of those 3 individuals.
Not at all. Each one was individual. Each one was separate. Each one was unique. And they are very, phrases that we use all the time, but it is true. They are unique. They are individuals. And, it wasn't in my head, the research shows this and research shows that and theory shows this. No, I'm dealing with them on an individual basis.
I've got loads of books on my bookshelf here, and I love them, and I haven't read all of them, but I'm working my way through them. Without those, I wouldn't have the knowledge I have today. But it's up to me to figure out what applies and what doesn't.
Exactly.
And not just take a book as this is how it is. Okay, this is what someone has worked out and supported their arguments by all sorts of data and examples, which is great. And then it's up to us when we go into practice and then remember, if not all, then most of it, and then try to apply that in the best way possible.
Mm.
So you and I are not against research.
Not at all.
Without it, we wouldn't know what we know. It's just how do we apply the research, and do we just take it as gospel, or do we take it as an indicator?
Yeah.
You may have your own views on research. You may be deep into it. You may hate it passionately or never even thought about it. So let us know what you think, and maybe we can do some research on that.
Exactly. Have our own little research into the research to see if the research is any good.
So before it gets completely out of hand, thank you for watching and see you in the next video.
Thank you. Cheerio. Bye-bye.